So the last type of map we need to talk about before we get into our study of United States history is the United States regions. We talked about how we break up continents into regions by geographic area. We divide the United States into geographic and cultural regions um, to talk about history when we're learning. And it also helps us to see patterns and cultural trends throughout United States history. So it's really important to understand the different parts of the United States because it's a really big country. So let's look at these seven main regions. Okay, so the first region we were in the northeast, right up here. New England has a lot of small towns and villages, and then they have a lot of fishing and forestry, so like lumber, timber, and it's a lot of the land is really hilly, not mountains but hills, and so it's kind of hard to farm. That's why they have a lot of forestry where they cut down the trees, and it's very cold in the winter, lots of snow. The next region is the Middle Atlantic states, which are down here, this orange one. The Middle Atlantic states have the most people of all of the regions, even though it's really small on the map. There's major business centers like New York City, which is right over here, where the little dot is. They have woodlands, kind of like New England, but lots of mountains and seashores. Um, Outside of New York City, like in Pennsylvania, New York especially, they have coal mining and farming, and then there's some fishing on the coast, and they also have cold, snowy winters. The capital right here, that's not one of our regions, but that's Washington, D.C. It's in between the Middle Atlantic states and the South, the yellow down here, this big region. This is where Tennessee is. This is where we live. The South has lots of crops like cotton, soybeans, and tobacco. We have both mountains and like flat areas. And then there's ocean, lots of ocean in the South, right? All the way here in Louisiana, Florida, all up the coast. And then we get a lot of warm weather, right, in the summer. The next region is the Midwest, this green section right here. The Midwest is mostly flat, and this is where a lot of the farming happens in the United States because the farmland it's good for farming. They have a lot of corn and wheat. Wheat is what we use to make bread, and they have a lot of dairy and farm animals, like a lot of cows and pigs, are kept in the Midwest. And they do have a lot of farmland, and then a lot of the people live in big cities, like Chicago is in the Midwest, and they also have cold, snowy winters, like the Middle Atlantic states in New England. The next region is the Rocky Mountain states over here in the purple. This is we're moving a little west. The Rocky Mountain states have the Rocky Mountains, which are, besides Alaska, the biggest mountains in the United States and in North America. They have lots of plains and plateaus, and then like colds or deserts. And then they have a lot of mining in the mountains for gold and silver, especially. But it's mostly dry, honestly, even up in the mountains. And then because a lot of this area is high in elevation, like high up, it gets pretty cold. And then the south down here, this pink, or sorry, the southwest. The south is over here, the yellow. This is the southwest, West Texas. It has huge areas of open land and some deserts, and they keep a lot of cattle down there, the cows. And there's a lot of growing cities in the Southwest, like in Texas and in New Mexico and Arizona especially. And it gets very hot and dry, just like northern Mexico. And then the last region, this is where I'm from. This is the Pacific coast over here, this weird blue. And then Alaska is way up here. And then Hawaii, the islands are actually way out here. The Pacific coast states, it's right along the Pacific Ocean. There's lots of thick forests, like hills and mountains, and thick forests of big trees. So there's a lot of timber and mining. And then there's also a lot of fishing because there's a lot of ocean right here, yeah? And then in California and Oregon especially, there's lots of crops. Um, so fruits and vegetables instead of like corn and wheat in the Midwest, we grow fruits and vegetables out here. And then there's a lot of rainfall up here in Washington, Oregon, and Alaska. It gets the most rain of any other part of the United States. So I hope you thought that was interesting. We're going to do a lot of activity with these before we move on.